Hi, my name is David Rippy. I am a certified hypnotherapist. This is a chapter, A Life of Wisdom, from my book, Meeting Jesus. Enjoy.
A Life of Wisdom. This client is a 26-year-old male who wanted to do a past life regression and mentioned he relates very strongly to the Essenes. He pursues shamanic rituals and gets into Reiki work. The hypnotic induction to place the subject into a superconscious state was left out to avoid repetition. David, as you're drifting down, deeper and deeper, I want you to picture a time that you are on the earth. You felt when you came in to do a regression that you may have been an Essene in another life. As you're drifting down, deeper and deeper, the memories become clearer of that life you want to explore. Do you see that you had a life as an Essene? Subject, yes. David, you see a life as an Essene. Is that correct? Subject, yes. David, let's look at that life. You're drifting down, deeper and deeper. Images are becoming clearer and clearer. I want you to go to that life as an Essene and tell me what you see. Describe how you look. Subject, beard. Tan. Very tan, and I'm staring at the sun. Feeding off the sun. David, what are you doing in the sun? Subject, feeding off the sun. David, feeding off the sun. Did you learn that as an Essene? What are your thoughts? Subject, I learned that. David, as an Essene, are you male or female? Subject, male. David, how tall are you? Subject, 5 feet 8 inches. David, what do you wear as an Essene? Subject, it's hot. Not much. Wearing no shirt but a type of braided fibers that are braided on my wrist and around my neck. No shoes. Almost like a loincloth. Very thin. David, describe your life as an Essene. Subject, it seems we traveled a lot, nomadic, and fed off the sun and elements. David, I see. Do the names of any towns or countries come into your mind? Where were you living at that time? Subject, Egypt. David, you were living in Egypt. Subject, yes. David, if you had to look back in time, was this before Christ or after? Subject, before. David, before. If you look at the time before Christ, how many years before Christ did you live? Subject, not long. David, not long, and you're living in a village in Egypt. Subject, interrupts, it's not a village. We're nomadic. David, you're nomadic. Subject, yes, it's like we are desert mystics. David, I see. Was it a nice life or was it hard? Subject, it was deeply empowering. David, were your parents Essenes as well, or how did you become an Essene? Subject, I was born into it. Into the tradition. David, you were born into the life as an Essene, and as an Essene you grew up learning the traditions. You learned a lot of these things when you were young, things that most people didn't know outside of your community. Tell me more. Subject, there was a lot of occult knowledge and knowledge of. David, you said it was before Jesus was born. Subject, yes. David, if you had to put it in years, how many years before Jesus? Subject, 50 max. David, 15 max. Subject, quickly correcting 50 max. 50 years before Jesus, and I was probably, 30 at the time. David, you're about 30 years of age, and you think it was about 50 years before Jesus was born. Is that correct? Subject, yes. David, it was 50 years before Jesus was born, and you were around 30 at the time and you were an Essene. You said you lived in Egypt. Did you live in Egypt that whole time, or did you go to Israel or elsewhere? Subject, we traveled to the Fertile Crescent. Author's note, the Fertile Crescent refers to areas of fertile soil near important rivers in the area. It stretches from the Nile River in Egypt to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in modern Iraq. It also encompasses several other countries, including Israel, Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria. David, did you ever go to Qumran? Do you remember that name? Author's note, some modern scholars and archaeologists have argued that Essenes inhabited the settlement at Qumran, a plateau in the Judean desert along the Dead Sea. Pliny the Elder, in support, gives credence in his writings that the Dead Sea Scrolls are the product of the Essenes. Subject: the name sounds familiar. David, do you know the names of any towns you might have gone to? Subject: pause. No, I didn't go to many towns. I spent a lot of time in more of a hermetic relationship. David, you were out living a nomadic lifestyle and were away from people most of the time. Subject: yes. David, how many were in your group? Subject: 12. David: 12. Now at age 30, were you married? Subject: no. David, were your parents in the same group? Subject: my parents are dead. David, your parents had passed away? Subject: aha, yes. David, were there males and females in your group? Any kids? Describe the group. Subject: male and female. No kids. It doesn't seem to be very family-based, and no one was married. It seems very focused on mysticism and learning how to interact. I also see teaching being taught, and being a teacher. David, tell me about mysticism. What was that like? Was that secret knowledge? Subject: yes. Like how to deal with literally feeding off the sun, and being able to breathe in nutrients. We would also eat a type of salt in the desert that had enormous energetic potential. David, how did you learn about this? Through all the teachings? Subject: I feel like the Essenes were visited. David, the Essenes were visited? Subject: yeah. David, when you look back at the history that your parents taught you, all the secret knowledge, who visited the Essenes to give them this knowledge? Do you remember? Subject: same beings that helped with the pyramids, with the Giza pyramids specifically. David, specifically, the Giza, interesting. Think back and see what comes to your mind. Was it mostly the Orions that helped with the Giza pyramids? Subject: no. David: no. Was it the Syrians? Subject: partly. David: partly Syrians. What about Pleiadians? Author's note: Orions, Syrians, and Pleiadians are the names given to beings from these star systems. Subject: yes. David, when you look back at that time period, you said you feel it's about 50 years before Jesus' birth. Subject: roughly. David, as an Essene, were there any other Essenes that we might know from the Bible that you were familiar with? Was Mother Mary ever mentioned, or John the Baptist? Subject: Thomas and Mary Magdalene. David, Mary Magdalene and Thomas? Subject: quickly, and Mother Mary. David, did your group ever encounter them? Subject: they did. David, you're telling me that other people in your band of Essenes had met them? Subject: I saw myself transcribing the Book of Thomas. The Gospel of Thomas. Author's note: the Gospel of Thomas is a non-canonical sayings gospel. It was discovered near Nag Hammadi, Egypt in December 1945 among a group of books known as the Nag Hammadi Library. Scholars speculate that the works were buried in response to a letter from Bishop Athanasius declaring a strict canon of Christian scripture. David, you helped with that? Subject: yes. David, what year was that? Subject: I don't see a year. I see it being removed or hidden. David, was that the same with the Book of Mary Magdalene? How did you know about Thomas? Subject: long pause. Thomas. In the Book of Thomas there was a lot more about the mysticism, not just about Christ, but more about the Essenes and Yeshua's visits with the Essenes. Author's note: Yeshua was common in books of the Hebrew Bible and among Jews of the Second Temple period. The name corresponds to the Greek spelling Jesus, from which, through the Latin Iesus, comes the English spelling Jesus. David, were the secrets of mysticism passed down, specifically involving beings coming to Earth and giving Essenes knowledge and helping with the Great Pyramids of Giza? Subject: I believe so. David, what other abilities did the Essenes have? What else could they do? Subject: levitation. I see something resembling the formula for gravity. David, so you do levitation. Was that using sound, or how was it done? Subject: Shifting your density. David, shifting your density? Not as physical. Subject, yes, same with your cells. David, as an Essene, could you astral project? Subject, absolutely. David, where would you go? Would you go to certain spots? Would you go off planet? Subject, on the planet, I do remember being able to communicate with what feels like aboriginal energy. I don't know if that's who or what they were. David, okay. Subject, but they were also a group that had the ability to project. They had a deep connection with nature, as we did as well. David, did you go days without eating? Subject, yeah. David, what's the longest you went without food? Subject, a month. David, what about water? Subject, if you ate salt days. David, if you ate the salt, you could go days without water? Could you go 2 weeks? Subject, I'm not sure. David, did you feel you might have gone 5 to 7 days without water because you had the salt? Subject, yes. David, is the salt similar to Dead Sea salt? What was it like? Subject, no, it was different than that. David, was it out in the desert, and the Essenes knew how to extract it? Subject, yes, it's almost like Ormus, but different. Author's note, Ormus stands for orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements, also known as ORMs, and the terms Ormus and M-state materials exist naturally. They are trapped in the molecular structure of plants and in certain rich volcanic soil and are abundant in the oceans of our planet. David, did you ever go see the pyramids of Giza? Subject, no, I did not. David, you never made it that far. Did you go to Cairo? Subject, Cairo was not Cairo then. David, that's interesting. Did you ever make it to Alexandria? Subject, yes. David, you did. Subject, yes. It wasn't even called Alexandria at one time. Author's note, historians generally agree that Rakotis or Rakede was a settlement established in Egypt before the 4th century BC in the area subsequently developed as Alexandria. David, was the life as an Essene empowering? Subject, yes. David, did you feel that in your life as an Essene you were more awake than in other lives you've had on Earth? Subject, absolutely. David, do you feel that might have been one of your most enlightened lives on Earth as an Essene? Subject, it was one of my top lives for enlightenment. David, you didn't meet John the Baptist? Subject, right. David, any of their relatives? Subject, yes. David, were you aware of them when you were alive, or when you had already passed? Subject, both. David, you knew about them while you were alive and after. Let's go to your death as an Essene. How old again were you when you passed? Subject, 180. David, you're saying you were 180 years old as an Essene. Is that correct? Subject, yes. David, did you ever meet Christ? Subject, no, I never met Yeshua. But I was still alive to help transcribe, and then after that I left. I died or left. David, you were alive to help transcribe the Book of Thomas, is that correct? Subject, that is correct. David, so you feel that you lived 65 years longer after Jesus was crucified and died around 98 to 100 AD? Is that how you were able to transcribe the Book of Thomas? Even though most of the disciples had died, you were still around. Subject, that is correct. David, you lived to be around 180 years old. What was the average life of an Essene? Did some live longer than others? Subject, yes. I was old. David, how long did your parents live? Subject, less than half. David, around 90 years of age when they died. How were you able to live to be 180 years old? Subject, we evolved. We continued to evolve. We kept picking up new tricks of immortality, so to speak, and with Christ coming in and spending time, I don't know. Pause again, I never met or interacted with Yeshua. David, because you were out in the desert? Because you were nomadic? Subject, yes. David, you stayed away from people. Subject, yes. David, how did you come to transcribe the book of Thomas? Subject, because they came and studied, Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary. They took pilgrimage and traveled and went and worked in different mystery schools and studied with us. David, Mother Mary, Mary and Thomas came to the mysticism schools and studied with you? Subject, Thomas didn't come to the mysticism school per se, but Mary did. David, Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary? Subject, both. David, they told you Jesus was the Messiah even though you never met him. Is that correct? Subject, yes. David, did you ever meet any of the disciples? Subject, no. David, did any of them ever come to your Essene get-togethers or meetings? Subject, remember there wasn't just one band of people, so not in my band. David, not in your band. You had your own band and Jesus had his own in a sense. Then other Essenes had their own. Subject, yes. David, all of you grew up in this Essene culture, learned ancient mysticism and took this knowledge to different places? Subject, yes. David, did you tell me that you never saw the pyramids of Giza? Subject, no, not in person, but I saw them when astral projecting. David, did you see other pyramids physically? Subject, yes, but since I could project to them, it was much faster and easier as you could imagine. I could see a lot of things when I astral projected. David, I see because of your advanced abilities, you could see the pyramids, other nations, landmarks, etc. Subject, yes. David, you could astral project anywhere you wanted? Subject, yes. David, could you astral project off planet? Subject, I don't know. David, but you remember astral projecting on Earth to many different locations? Subject, yes. Now I would assume that I could project off planet if we had interactions with other beings, but I'm not sure. David, wow. Now think of those beings, you said Pleiades, is that correct? Subject, and Orion. David, did you meet these beings in person? Subject, no, I just heard. David, oh, you heard about them? Subject, yes, that we had been given a lot of their knowledge. David, they helped your group immensely. Subject, yes. David, did they teach you the keys to longevity? Subject, yes. David, so that's how you lived so long. You're out in the desert, you're meditating, and you learn to bring in the prana and energy from the sun. You fill your body with this and you were able to increase your longevity. Subject, yes. David, how did you feel in that life? As if you were immortal? Did you believe in reincarnation? Subject, oh yes. It felt like you were born into almost a Christ-conscious state. That's how it felt. David, did any beings help you pick your life as an Essene before you incarnated? Subject, that seems more. That was almost like a level up, and I did enough work in earlier lives to be able to experience that life. David, let's go to your death as an Essene. You're about 180 at this time. Subject, yes. David, are you feeling old at this point? How do you feel? Subject, older. David, do you look older? Subject, yes, like an old yogi in the mountains. David, did you have a beard? Subject, yes. It was white. It wasn't when I was younger. David, you resembled one of those old yogis that are seen in India? Subject, yes, I looked more Middle Eastern than Indian. David, more Middle Eastern and you lived to be 180. Did you know your death ahead of time? Subject, sort of. David, were your organs starting to shut down, or how did you know? Subject, no. I was very connected with my inner intuition in that life, and I knew it was coming. I remember preparing for it with others at a ceremony. David, wow. Now tell me about the ceremony. Subject, I see a circle of rocks and 3 concentric rings going out. I'm sitting in the outermost ring, and the rest of the group is filed in around the circumference. I see a lot of use of different woods. I see sandalwood being used. There's a fire, wow. There are 6 fire pits. David, interesting. Subject, there's chanting. David, it sounds like a very nice ceremony. Now, let's go right to your moment of death. Do you see yourself? Subject, I do. David, tell me what you remember. Subject, pause, it's very gentle, but I didn't want to go. David, okay, did you like your life as an Essene? Subject, interjects quickly, yes, I liked my life a lot. David, when you look back at all your lives, was that one of your lives you enjoyed the most? Because of your enlightened awareness? Subject, I would say yes. David, at your death, what did you see? Did you see yourself coming out of your body? Can you visualize that? Subject, yes. It's different. It's different than the life I had living in a log cabin as a settler. It's similar to a firework rather than a spark. It was like a firework shooting up. David, was that your soul shooting upwards? Subject, I'm assuming. David, as you go forward and see yourself, were there different colors of energy coming out of your body? Can you describe it? Subject, yes. It exploded. It was sparkles and fizzing energy. It was as if a carbonated beverage exploded in the air. David, wow, and what did you feel at that point? Did you feel like you were free of an old body? How did it feel? Subject, yes. It was almost like popping something. Something popped. It was a release. David, did you feel free? Subject, yes. Absolute liberation. David, did you know that you were immortal at that point? Subject, yes, but not at first. At first it was a little disorienting. David, it was disorienting. When you first came out of your body, were you thinking, where am I? What's this? Subject, yes. David, can you describe that? Subject, it's like being in a pitch black room, and then the fireworks went off. David, when did it become lighter for you? What did you see then? Subject, fireworks. Myself going up, and then an enormous release of pressure, and then the absolute knowing sinking over me. That I'm immortal and all is in perfect order. David, did a lot of the teachings and beliefs that you had in that life as an Essene, did they seem to be true after you passed? Subject, yes. David, the things you studied and all the things that you were taught, did they contain secrets about life after death? Subject, yes, and at the same time I felt I did not want to go out of my body at first, even with all the information I had and awareness. David, even though you believed, you still weren't quite sure until you stepped out of your body. Is that correct? Subject, exactly. David, then you realized, wow, everything I learned was real. I'm here now, I have full consciousness, how did that feel? Subject, magnificent. Beyond magnificent. David, beyond words. Subject, so far beyond them. David, did you feel that you had your whole persona back? After you came out of your disoriented state, when you began to feel your entire self, did the other lives you had start to trickle back to your consciousness? Were they all part of you at that point? Subject, yes. David, after that disoriented period, you realized all the experiences you had as a living soul. Subject, yes. David, now you knew everything about yourself. Subject, yes. It was a point of self-realization and actualization, and now I'm not limited to knowing just my most recent self. David, after you realized your whole awareness and consciousness, were they now strong memories in your mind that you could recall with instant clarity? Subject, yes. David, you had access to that instantaneously. Where did you go from there? Did you go back and review that life as an Essene? Subject, something with the halls of Amenti after that life. David, the halls of Amenti? Now have you read about the halls of Amenti in your life as underscore? Author's note, the halls of Amenti are between the highest and lowest dimensions, distorting the only truth that exists in the universe. The omega point stands for divine reason equals wisdom equals unconditional love. Subject, I have read about it and one time had a glimpse. David, you read about it one time in this life, is that correct? Subject, yes. David, did you ever read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth? Author's note: the emerald tablet is said to be a tablet of emerald or green stone inscribed with the secrets of the universe. The source of the original emerald tablet is unclear, hence it is surrounded by legends. The most common story claims that the tablet was found in a cave tomb under the statue of Hermes in Tiana, clutched in the hands of the corpse of Hermes Trismegistus himself. The creator of the emerald tablet in myth was known to be the Egyptian god Thoth. It was said that Thoth divided his knowledge into 42 plates of emerald, codifying the great scientific principles ruling the universe. The legend tells that after the gods' fall, the hermetic tablets were cleverly hidden so that no human being might find them. Only Thoth, on his return to that location, was able to recover the mysterious book. Subject: yes, I did. David: you read them in this life? Subject: yes. David: when you look at things you've read, why did you read the emerald tablets? Did the tablets resonate with you? Subject: laughs with what seems like fond memories, Thoth. David: so it resonated. Did you have a hand in writing it? Subject: no, but it was deeply ingrained within the Essene tradition. The emerald tablets, they were very well known. David: you're telling me that the emerald tablets were known by the Essenes? Subject: very well known. David: very interesting. I read them myself, and I had no idea that the Essenes were aware of them, but that doesn't surprise me. They resonate with me as well, and those tablets are very, very old. Subject: ancient. Ancient. David: when you go back to the Essene culture, and you see the knowledge they were given, you can't help but be impressed. We are going back 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 BC. Subject: possibly earlier. David: you grew up and lived as an Essene. You lived 180 years, and you're feeding off the sun. What was the belief among your group of Essenes concerning the age of the Essene culture? Subject: size. Time wasn't as linear. It's hard to say. They measure time by stars and constellations. It's way different than a standard calendar. David: way before the calendars we are familiar with. Subject: yes. David: in Earth years, how far back does the Essene culture go? Subject: I would say thousands. David: the emerald tablets of Thoth go way back before then. Subject: oh yes. David: let me ask you this, being an Essene, being able to astral project, did you ever encounter any divine beings or angels? Subject: definitely messengers, yes. David: did you ever meet Archangel Michael or Gabriel? Subject: no, but Hilarion is linked to Paul and the disciples, and that was linked to us. Master Hilarion. David: so Master Hilarion was linked to the disciples. Subject: to Paul the disciple. Very specific. David: did you ever hear or learn of the other disciples? Matthew or any of the others? Subject: not as much, but Paul for some reason sticks out. David: Paul sticks in your mind. Subject: yes. David: how did you feel you did in that life as an Essene? Concerning your soul agreement, how well did you do with your lessons? Subject: it was more of a gift life, a reward for other lives where I accomplished other things. David: isn't that neat? You weren't evaluated on that life. It wasn't so much a life of lessons that you had to pass, it was more of a life to enjoy because you earned that right. Subject: yes. David: can we bring angels in the room with us? Will you tell me who you feel might be here? Subject: I can feel a divine presence. David: you can feel a divine presence. Do you feel Archangel Michael in the room? Subject: no, I feel Raphael. David: great. Raphael's here. Let's ask a few questions. Can we? Subject: yes. David: I want you to drift down, deeper and deeper, more and more relaxed. You feel totally relaxed, and when I count from 1 to 3, you will find even more clarity. When you look in your mind's eye, let's ask Raphael if he has any words of advice for you in this life. 1, 2, 3. Tell me what he says. Subject: pause, deep breaths, chuckles to himself. David: deep breaths. Does Raphael have any other advice? Subject: no, I'm getting right now to take deep breaths. David, let's ask him this. Are the lives they're allowing underscore to see, did they show these lives for any particular reason? What are Raphael's thoughts on that? Subject, open up. David, he's telling you to open up. Subject, yes, both internally and externally. David, so externally to be more extroverted? Subject, no, different than that. Open up. David, open up to the possibilities? Subject, yes, open up to receive. He wants me to receive that. David, receive what? To receive a healing? Subject, to be open enough to receive. Slow and steady wins the race, keep it slow and steady. David, does Raphael feel that your health issues can be resolved? Subject, yes, but not in the way that I interpret to be rid of them. David, does he see conventional medicine or is it with divine help? Subject, a peppering of all of it. David, some conventional and some divine help. Conventionally, are there medicines to be developed in the future that will help with your health issues? Does he see that you can cleanse your body through the knowledge you learned as an Essene? Like using the energy of the sun to heal your body and your blood? Subject, yes, that second part especially. David, heal your own blood with the sun? Subject, heal my own blood through different means like that. David, does he think that this session will help you with your health issues? Subject, yes, it's definitely a healing session. David, we know that Raphael is here. Are there any other angels or guides that are here with us? Subject, one of my guides is here. David, one of your guides is here. Do you know their name? Subject, Zoranha. David, say that again. Subject, Zoranha. David, Zoranha. What does she say about this session? Is she happy with it? Subject, yes. David, does she feel underscore is going to get healthier and better? Get himself back? Subject, she sure hopes so. She sure hopes so. It seems to be the ball is in my court. David, has she been with you for a while as your spirit guide? Subject, yes. David, is she right above your level of evolvement, or is she higher than that? Subject, right above. David, now before you came here tonight, she already knew ahead of time you were coming, and she knew that we were going to work on past lives and health issues. Did she guide you here? Subject, pause, no, it's not a surprise for her. David, is she glad you're doing it? Subject, yes. She encourages all the deep diving of this healing. David, good deal. Does she think knowing about your life as an Essene makes you realize the possibilities of what you can do in this life? Subject, yes, that expanded things for me, and I saw things I had not seen before. David, good. As you look back, I want you to remember this life, and I want you to go with the flow and absorb it. Concentrate on that golden light going into every cell of your body and your mind's eye, lighting your whole body up to heal. Does your guide have any other words for underscore while we're here? Subject, don't give up. David, don't give up. That's right. You know why you don't give up? Because you're going to repeat those lessons again if you do. Subject, laughing, she's laughing. They're all laughing. David, they're very patient. You can fail courses or in other words lessons, but you will have to keep taking them until you eventually pass. Do you feel that is the way it is? Subject, yes. David, it's similar to a school lesson, and we have to get through them all eventually. Subject, yes. David, but you can do it, underscore. You have a lot of deep-seated knowledge. You're an old soul. You've had many interesting lives, and you've had lives on other planets. A lot of people have not experienced that. They only know the human experience. You've had lives in mental realms, a life as an Essene, and I think when you add all these together you realize you're a unique guy. You have a lot of potential, and these health issues you have, I feel you signed up for them before you took this life. I think you decided to take a harder life this time around, because your spirit guide and your council of elders thought you were ready. Before you came down to this life, you agreed to take those lessons and traumas to advance your knowledge and evolvement. Use the knowledge you have already gained, add to that, and pursuing deeper meditations will help. Visualize golden light coming into your body through your crown chakra and taking away all the negative energy that contributes to your health issues. I think by doing these things you will feel healthier, which will help you make better decisions. You will find that your path will become easier to walk, and as you go forward, it will be easier to discern which forks are best to take on your journey. Let's ask your spirit guide. Does she feel _ is doing well on his lessons now? What does she say? Subject, pause, yes, but they're going to keep coming. David, you signed up for these lessons and you wouldn't have taken these hard lessons unless you were an evolved soul, right? Subject, that's what I am told. David, you know that they're always aware of what you're up to, or they can go to the Akasha records and retrieve anything on your current or past lives. The Presence Creator, Brahma, or whatever name you use for God in your spirituality, knows where you are. Zoranha knows where you are, and you have a lot of people interested in your welfare, from deceased relatives to those you've had lives with. Raphael is here tonight, as well as your spirit guide, who want to see you succeed. Ask them to come into your space when you meditate or pray and reflect on where you need their help. If you have this awareness that other beings are watching you, helping you, supporting you, you will find your journey easier. If you have this knowledge going through life, you will feel less separated and realize there is much more to reality than what your five senses tell you. Greater power and strength will accompany you when you need it. At least that's how I look at it. Is that how you see it? Subject, yes. David, that's good. Do you have any other questions tonight? Subject, I have a lot to take in now and sit and process. And my question is how to gently guide me out of. Are you going to gently guide me out? I think I'm stuck. David, yes, I want you to begin the process of waking up. As I count from 1 to 5, you will find yourself becoming more and more awake with each number. 1, more and more awake, starting to stretch. 2, feeling your eyelids starting to open, becoming more and more awake.